What's going on, everybody? Welcome in to episode 17 of Lobbing Scorchers. This is Ari Lilienwall. I got producer Noah here with me. Noah, say what's up to the people.
Listen, the haters and the losers, they bookmarked the tweets, they took screenshots, but you know what? We got a final judgment on Fraud Watch today, and much more to come.
Yeah, Noah unfortunately upset the city of St. Louis and the St. Louis City SC fan base with the title of our last episode. So we are going to unfortunately have to dive into how both of us are actually turned out to be validated through that situation. We're going to hit that later in the show. But before we do that, we got a dub pod.
Dub pod
for you today. And not only is it a dub pod, but it's a playoff dub pod. So it's a very special dub pod. We're going to talk about the Seattle Sounders round 1 best of 3 series opening win over FC Dallas 2-0 at Lumen Field.
A great game to be at.
It was. We were both there. I was in the press box. You were in the stands. It was a fun game to be at. It was the playoff vibes were out, you know, like with a playoff game, you can always kind of feel the energy in the building. It's got that different type of energy and intensity. I would say that was very much the case. And it was an enjoyable game to watch from a Seattle perspective for sure. We're going to talk about all the fine points of it. And then we're going to talk about a lot of the rest of all the rest of the results from around the league in these round 1 series that are going on. I'm gonna make my official declaration on my take on the format. We talked about that on the last episode a little bit.
We did. And
I kind of gave like a preemptive take. Now that I've seen how game 1 went and, you know, I've done the vibe check, I think I have an amended take on how I'm thinking of it. So we'll get into that. But first, let's talk about this playoff dub. Noah, you down?
I'm beyond down. This team, whoo!
That was sharp.
They look hot.
That was sharp. It really, that's how you started off.
Oh, no,
that's how you started
joking.
off. You know, we were wondering if their improved form from the kind of stretch run of the regular season was going to translate into the playoffs, especially with, it seems like they found consistency with this lineup now. Brian Schmetzer even said that after the game. He said, you know, I'm riding the hot hand. This is a lineup that's been playing well. They've been scoring some goals, so I decided to stay with it. I think we all thought that was the right decision. You know, there is a way of thinking of it where in a big game like this, maybe you go back to a lineup that's more filled with the players that have come through for you in big games in the past. So maybe you do start a Nico Ladero or Raul Ruidiaz in this situation, given their pedigree and their track record of coming through in these situations. Schmetz didn't do that, and I think it's pretty obvious that it paid off. And you know, we were talking about it on the last episode too. But I mean, Nico Ladero off the bench as a super sub.
Oh, so sick.
I mean, that's really like, and he looked. I honestly thought he looked like as good as he had pretty much all season.
Yeah,
he looked like vintage Nico in that shift. Picks up the secondary assist on the second goal. But yeah, that was just good stuff from the opening whistle. I thought Seattle was sharp in attack really throughout the first half. The only blemishes on the first half were 2 chances that FC Dallas had through Jesus Ferreira. Stefan Fry makes a really good save on the first one. He had a clean breakaway on that one.
Yeah,
that should have been a goal, but Steph Fry did what Steph Fry does.
Goalkeeper of the
you know, Schmetz actually he went on a soapbox about that after the game.
I did see that. That was pretty good. He was stumping for him. It's crazy that he's never gotten one. Like when you think about the trophy case that he's accumulated. Yeah, I think realistically probably this wasn't his year, but in the past he's definitely been snubbed.
Yeah, it could have been like a lifetime achievement award this year.
Yeah.
Even
the
though
Nick Raimondo lifetime achievement
Steph Fry, this is kind of a tangent, but
correct.
like any inclination that anyone might have said that he's washed, like I didn't see that this year. I thought the goalkeeping was really good this year between him and Steph Cleveland. Anyway, aside from those two blemishes, where you had the kind of defensive lapses where Jesus Ferreira gets 2 clean looks on goal. Steph Fry makes a great save on one of them. They get a little lucky that he skied the second one over the crossbar.
Yeah.
But other than that, Seattle was firing throughout the first half, and they get rewarded for their goal right on the stroke at halftime. Christian Roldan wins the penalty. He got Marco Farfan on that one.
Yeah, he did.
He got him. Christian's so good at that. Like we saw him do that in Champions League last year. You've seen him do it a bunch of times actually, and it's kind of always on that exact type of play where he's bodying off a defender and getting around him, and the defender goes in for the challenge, and as soon as he feels that contact, he knows how to fall. So it looks like a penalty,
I mean, it is a foul,
and it is a foul. It is
like
a foul.
Textbook.
But who didn't think it was a foul?
Every FC Dallas fan in your mentions.
Specifically FC Dallas head coach Nico Estevez, who had a really good. We always like to bring it to light when you get a blazing hot coach press conference here on Lobbing Scorchers. Nico Estevez had a great one. He was popping off about that penalty kick call. He was saying, okay, I don't really exactly remember exactly what he said, but I know it was something to the effect of like, there's specifically been some rule change where this exact type of play is actually not supposed to be awarded a penalty, and then they didn't adhere to this like changed rule, which I don't know what he's talking about. I didn't know they changed the rules, but he was saying that it shouldn't have been a penalty kick based on this amended rule, and then he was also red hot that I guess he was saying Alex Roldan took the throw in from like 10 yards ahead of where it was supposed to be taken. I don't really remember the sequence to know like if the throw in was taken accurately, but one thing that we've talked about it on this show a lot of times this season, but I mean that's just a situation where if you're Marco Farfan, like you have to know as soon as you go into that challenge, like you're in a 50-50 proposition at that point. And there's a 50% chance that you're going to get called for the PK on that. It's hard to do because if you let Christian get around you there, he's got a lot of space to get across in. You might concede a goal. So it's a tough decision to make as a defender there. But he made the decision to make the challenge, and that's usually going to be called a penalty. That's just how it goes.
Yeah, especially in Seattle. I mean, I don't know. That's a little risky to take that, especially against Roldan, who gets those calls.
Yeah. So Albert Rusnak steps up to the spot. Almost had his penalty saved. Martin Paz, who I would say we're fans.
Yeah, I'm a huge Martin Paz
head.
Really,
he's a really good. He's a really good goalkeeper. One of the most underrated goalkeepers in the league. I always try and bring him up when people are talking about who the top goalkeepers are because I haven't looked at it this year, but I know last year I was looking at who I should vote for goalkeeper of the year, and so I was looking at everyone's stats. He's near the top of the league in all of them. So he made a good go at that Rusnak penalty, but he couldn't quite keep it out. It ended up going off the post and going in, and Seattle got a 1-0 lead headed into halftime, which I thought was well deserved based on how they played. At least one person out there on the Twitter sphere didn't like how I framed it after the game so the headline on my post-game content on MLSsoccer.com was something to the effect of like the Seattle Sounders rose to the occasion, which I don't always write the headlines. Sometimes I do. Like I usually, if I'm doing my own written piece like that, I'll put in like an idea of what I think the headline should be. And it usually gets changed. In this case, it got changed to that. But I think it was a pretty accurate headline. Anyway, someone tweeted at me and was like, what did he say? He was like, they really rose to the occasion by getting lucky that Jesus Ferreira missed those two sitters.
Yeah.
So he kind of owned me on that one.
I mean,
I don't know. Like he shouldn't have missed the sitters. Then that was my response. But like also.
But his XG, but his XG went crazy.
And the XG on the chances weren't even going crazy. So maybe they weren't that good at chances. So I don't know. I just thought that was funny. If you want, I guess the point at the end of the day is like, if you want credit for those sitters, like you have to convert the goals. Like,
it's
like
not...
if he makes those, then I wouldn't have been able to say that they rose to the occasion. So
also, I wouldn't even say
that solves that problem.
I wouldn't even say they were sitters. They were on. He was. The
first
motion.
one was a clean breakaway. I don't know if that's different than a sitter.
Yeah, but that was the one Fry saved though.
Right. Well, so that's my other point is that Fry, like a goalkeeper making a huge save on a breakaway, is rising to the occasion.
Yeah,
so.
I don't think that you can fault. Like, I mean, yeah, like he could have placed his shot better, sure, in another world, but also, as we just talked about, Fry is an incredible goalkeeper who made an incredible save. Second one, yeah, okay, maybe that's a sitter. More just he just shanked it.
Yeah, he put that one into row double Z. He put that up in the is that the Hawk's Nest up there?
Yeah, wherever that is.
That was into orbit.
Yeah.
FC Dallas attacker Alan Velasco unfortunately got injured in this game, which
that made me really sad.
That really sucked. He had to come out of the game in like the 20th minute or so, and so that kind of puts them behind the eight ball in this series. I don't think he's gonna play in game 2, and he's really the engine behind a lot of what they do, and I just think it sucks because, you never want to see anyone get injured, obviously, but like, I'm of the mind that like, I like to see teams play each other at full strength, especially in the playoffs. And Alan Velasco is going to be such like a key character in this series. I think we talked about him when we were previewing this matchup because he's such a key player for them, but he's one of the most talented young players in the league, number 1 on the under 22 rankings for a reason. Big time prospect. So that was a bummer to see. I'm legitimately bummed to not get to watch him play in game 2 because just it takes some of the intrigue out of it. So
yeah, I agree. When he went down and there were people around me like, oh, he's faking it. I'm like, I don't think he's faking it, buddy.
I think it was it looked like it might have been like a pretty serious long-term injury. I'm hoping it was more like a sprain or something that's like a few weeks, but who knows? We'll keep an eye out for the prognosis on that.
I always like watching FC Dallas for players like that. They've been known to have so many fun young players that you're going to see in other leagues because they always sell everyone, but other than that, like, they're fun to watch. Playoff soccer should be about, 2 full strength teams going at it. Let's find the best team. But so that, it made me sad to see him go down, honestly.
He might, out of all those guys, he might have the highest like theoretical upside out of any of them. You know? This was the Nouhou game, in my opinion.
Yeah.
This was the Nouhou game. Brian Schmetzer, I said it after the game. I said it to Jeremiah O'Shawn from Sounder at Heart in the press box during the game. But, that's the best game I've ever seen Nouhou play.
Yeah, that was disgusting.
He was balling.
He saw RBW. He saw RBW say, "Hey, I'm good, buddy. I'm going to come for your job." And Nouhou said,
Yeah.
Nuh-uh.
So Nouhou, he's a fan favorite, and most Sounders fans love Nouhou, but there is a segment of Sounders fans who it's kind of become like the trendy thing to hate on Nouhou. It's like, most people love Nouhou, but I'm like a soccer intellectual. And so I actually hate Nouhou because he's kind of a black hole in attack and his antics are sometimes ill-timed and unnecessary. And, I understand like why it can be grating to watch sometimes when he's doing the thing where he makes like a bounding run all the way up the field, ignores like 4 dudes that he could have laid the ball off to, launches across like that nowhere near anybody, and then he runs back to the other end of the field and then just does a completely unnecessary bicycle kick and he's jumping around and pointing and then misses stuff, his mark, and then maybe he'll miss his mark on a goal. Like, these are all things that happen with Nouhou, but I think like in getting kind of caught up in doing these anti-Nouhou takes sometimes for that, like you lose sight of the value that he brings to the table, and that is an elite one-on-one defender.
Yeah, he's a wild card. He's
definitely a wild card, and that's why some people like him. That's why some people don't like him. But you saw what the value is in this game, and why he's pretty much locked on starter when he's healthy. Because I mean, his work on defense in this game was pretty incredible. Like, if you think about the amount of just ground on his side of the field that he can completely nullify. Yaider Obrian is a very good attacking player. And he's got a lot of pace. He's dynamic on the ball. He's not easy to completely neutralize like that. He had nothing on Nouhou. He had nothing on Nouhou the entire game, okay? So, like, his work on D was lights out, and that's basically what we've come to expect from Nouhou. You know, you have the individual error here and there, but, like, that's typically what he brings to the table. But in this game, I think what you saw was, like, a very surprising aptitude for timing his runs forward, like, picking his spots just super, super well. And then also, like, pinpoint delivery on his crosses that I didn't even really, like, know he had in his bag. It wasn't even just the assist on the JMO goal, which we'll talk about. Like, he had another cross in this game, too, that was, like, right on the money.
I'm going to play devil's advocate, though. He did go 2 for 6 on accurate long balls. So that's, like, 33% on crossing. And, I mean, like, yeah, he had those 2 really great passes. One, obviously, that was just, like, the perfect ball ever and an incredible assist. But he was still showing Nouhou, like, signs. I mean, I'm not a hater, but I also
you're really gonna dog him for two for six on long balls when he had that assist.
I'm not gonna dog him. I just know that, like, long-term sample size, we know that this has not been a sustainable, consistent thing. That said, period. This game was disgusting. Nouhou showed that he should probably be starting over RBW right now, which, like, do I want that? Personally, not really, but I mean, I can't blame the guy. He clearly won his spot.
I think
and earns it.
Like, I think the RBW should start over him take sounded fire after RBW had his goal that was ruled an own goal, but should have been his goal, and RBW is starting to break out a little bit. But, like, there's such a gulf in how much you can rely on them defensively, I think, especially in a playoff game. Like, I don't know. I like that game kind of illustrated it to me. Like,
I think that's
when Nouhou's in form and bringing it on defense like that, he brings a lot of value to the team still, even despite some of the shortcomings he might have. Which, I mean, I agree with what you were saying in the sense, like, I don't necessarily think seeing him get that assist means he's all of a sudden, you know, Jovan Jones back there just launching in dime after dime after dime. If it is a sign that he has that in his bag, like, we might start the train of, like, him getting sold to a Big Six club again or something. Like, if he ever could have added that to his bag, like, that's kind of what's held him back from, I think, like, achieving that like transfer buzz that he used to have and that people thought he should have, is he never really fine-tuned that part of his game. But I mean, it looked great in this game. So I guess we'll talk about Jordan Morris's goal, because this game was 1-0 until I think it was the 70-something minute that they got that second goal, because it was after Nico Ladero came on, 74. Because Nico Ladero picks up the secondary assist. It was actually a really just a really great team goal, great sequence. The Sounders posted a video of it showing every pass. It was 12 passes. Ladero puts like a little through ball down the left side to Nouhou. And, Nouhou did so well to get that crossed off because he had the guy bearing right down on him. He was right on top of him.
It was a nasty play.
It was a nasty cross right into JMO. Pretty unstoppable because with how accurate that delivery was, like all JMO had to do, he had to jump, but he can jump out of the building. So it was just a really well worked team goal, and that made it 2-0. And as soon as it became 2-0, in around the 73rd, 74th minute, it felt like it was pretty done and dusted. Schmetz called it a professional win after the game, and I agree. I think, when you think about a professional win, it's like you take your 2-0 lead, kill off the game, don't let anything crazy happen. They managed to do that, and that's a wrap. That's a 1-0 lead in this round one best-of-3 series, and they'll take that into game 2 in Frisco, Texas, the thriving metropolis, on Saturday, where they can close off the series. So we can talk about that. Before we do that, I guess, should I dish my format take? All right.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So when we were talking about the format, the best-of-3 series that they're doing for these first round on the last episode, I was kind of a lot of people hated it off rip. I didn't really feel that way because kind of what I was saying was like, for the first round, I really don't mind a multi-game series. That might not be a popular take. I think a lot of people enjoyed the excitement of the single elimination throughout the whole thing, and I can understand that. But when I think about it, like in principle, I don't necessarily mind a multi-game series and then going to single elimination. But here's my take. If you're going to do the multi-game series for round one, it should be the way that they used to have it, where it was the home and away aggregate scoring 2 games. That's a good way to do a multi-game series, in my opinion. There are aspects of that I enjoyed. Maybe not more than the excitement of a single elimination game, but in a different way than a single elimination game. The first thing I don't like about this best-of-3 thing is I don't like that there's no aggregate scoring, because you aren't rewarded or penalized at all for a lopsided result or scoring more goals or getting punished for conceding more goals. Sporting Kansas City going into St. Louis City and scoring 4 goals on the road and taking a 4-1 win, that shouldn't be rewarded in the exact same way as a home team winning 1-0.
Yeah, it's 1-0.
And on top of that, like, I think St. Louis deserves to be in an aggregate hole for losing their home match.
Yeah, 4 away goals is insane.
Yeah, exactly. So there's also fun stuff that goes on with the strategy of how you play the games when it's aggregate scoring. You have to play the second game differently based on what the goal total is in the first game, and then it changes the vibe of the game based on what the score of the first game was. So I just think all that stuff is more compelling and a better way to do it than this 3-game series, which is super like Americanized, and there's no aggregate scoring. There's a third game that feels unnecessary. So I mean, I don't know what you think of the take that if they're going to do it multiple games, it should just be the 2-game home and away aggregate. Like that's how I see it. I would also be down like for how they had it with single elimination throughout. But me personally, I really don't mind the idea of having a multi-game series like to start it off. I wouldn't like, having seen how this is starting out, I would not do this like best of 3, how they got it.
Yeah, no, I think that I don't mind a multi-series first round or second, however you want to do it. Like, we watch Champions League. We love Champions League. It's fun. But yeah, it's a bad product. It's created a bad product. It's created what basically Dallas was doing in the first half of the game before the Sounders scored, which was, let's sit on every ball that we can. Let's bleed the clock as much as we can. We're going to pray to God that we can, get out with a draw. If we can win, we can win. Awesome. But it's just so boring. There's no incentive to score more than
is that different, though? Like, trolling for draws when you're the road team in the playoffs is not necessarily a novel strategy to this. That's been going on forever.
Yeah, but I don't think that it's also like...
It might incentivize it more.
I just think it incentivizes it more because I don't think that in the past, when you have an aggregate, it's like, it doesn't matter. Like, the scoreline doesn't matter. All that matters is you either win the game or you don't. So if you can get to penalties because there's no, it just goes straight to penalties after full time. Like, you just kind of say that's a coin toss every time.
Yeah.
You never know.
We're going to have to see how it pans out because there could be weird situations here. Like, so for instance, with this Sporting Kansas City St. Louis series, like, they could have a situation where Sporting Kansas City goes into City Park and wins 4-1, and then St. Louis City trolls a couple 0-0s and then wins both of those games on PKs. So, like, if that kind of stuff happens, the Discord is going to be hot. I'll tell you that. But
yeah, that's not entertaining.
Anyway, I don't want to make it a format episode, but I just wanted to get out my official format take on the record. There's been a lot of format takes flying around. Everyone's got one. That's mine. I don't mind a multi-game series. I think there's pros and cons to it, but there are pros. And I really, maybe I have a sentimental attachment to it because, when I first started rolling with the Sounders, it was those playoff series where it was home and away aggregate, and I just have some good memories with those series, and like I had fun with them. So
I think that the nice thing about home and away aggregate too, on the business side of things, both teams get a playoff game, and that's like, if you want to watch your team in the playoffs, you get a chance. And I'm
they both get them in this best of 3 format. I'm just saying to be like a 2-leg series versus just a one and done. Gotcha.
It's nice to have that. But
okay, well, looking ahead to Game 2 in Frisco on Saturday, the thriving metropolis of Frisco, Texas, where I've actually never been. That's
I've been one of those
road trips that I've never done. Seattle can end the series with a win in regulation or in penalties. And so I guess we should probably talk about what the chances we feel are that they actually do that. My initial thought on it is that, like, typically when I think about a road trip to FC Dallas, I think about a game where you're essentially just praying for a draw. It's a really, really hard place to play. Seattle historically doesn't do very well on road trips to Frisco. I don't know exactly what their all-time record is when they go there, but I know it isn't good. But my thought on why a result might be more attainable in this game than road trip to FC Dallas typically might be is pretty much actually just the fact that we're talking about the month of November. Mm-hmm. Most times that they're playing these games, it's the meat of summer, and it's that oppressive heat. It gets to be like 95, 100 degrees, and those elements are just really hard to play. And that's why Seattle, part of why Seattle always struggles when they go play Houston too. It's just hard to play in that Texas heat. I think with some more forgiving elements, and a little bit lower of a temperature, ostensibly, that they might normally have, I think that levels the playing field quite a bit. And it takes it into a situation where whatever talent advantage that you have, which I think Seattle does have the talent advantage in this matchup, it makes it matter more because that advantage isn't nullified by the elements, which it usually is. And it's kind of refreshing to think of it in that way because like I said, like every time Seattle is going to Dallas, I kind of just chalk it as far as like, well, it's just a 50-50 proposition, any sort of positive result at best, because even if the lineup that Seattle puts out there is way better, it's going to be so goddamn hot that like they're going to get really tired by like the 28th minute, and they're probably going to yield a lot of possession and get run on a lot. So I think that might be less of a factor here. And so I think Seattle can actually win this game. I don't know if they will, because another thing that they're going to have to deal with is FC Dallas is playing at home with their season absolutely on the line. And that means they're playing a desperate opponent. When you have a desperate opponent playing at home, like they're going to try and be on top of you from the start of the game. And it's just inevitable that you're going to have to deal with pretty lengthy spells of the game where they're going to be on top of you. So you got to be able to absorb that pressure, and your back line just has to be up for it. You can't be making like sloppy errors on defense or switching off for even a second, because they're going to be playing with their hair on fire. So this game to me really just comes down to how well Seattle can manage and match the intensity that they're going to be bringing, because they're going to be bringing it. They have to win this game. It's not going to be like game one where they can kind of play coy with it and try and strategize it. They got to be going all out. But one thing about a desperate opponent like that is they can leave themselves vulnerable. So in addition to matching that intensity, when you have those moments when they're throwing numbers forward, you got to be ready to capitalize. So it's really going to be a good test of Seattle's recently improved attack to see if they can pick their spots when those moments come up, and can they execute, and can they get this dub in regulation, or at least get it to PKs. I think if you got this to PKs, you wouldn't be happy with it, but you would take that. If you told me before the game that they were going to get a draw in regulation and get it to PKs, I'd probably take that.
I don't want to face Pos personally, but...
No, I definitely don't. But if it has to be done, it has to be done. But anyway, that's just kind of how I see this matchup. They're going to... FC Dallas, they're going to be running around like maniacs out there. Like, get ready.
I'm just... Yeah, I am not confident, not because I don't think this team isn't miles better than FC Dallas, but just simply because I'm thinking back to the Inter Miami game that they played in Dallas, which Inter Miami came back, they were like 4 goals down in the Leagues Cup, and ended up winning that game. But also,
that was Messi and the Barca boys.
That was Messi and the Barca boys. All I'm saying is I've seen what that team can do with their backs to the wall, with, their season riding on it, or a big cup riding on it. And it scares me a little bit. And it definitely scares me to have to face Martin Pos as a penalty kick shootout potential. But that said, even if they drop this game, I am more than confident that game 3 in Seattle is a bamming. And, on to the next one, I guess.
Yeah, they're certainly in the driver's seat. That's where you want to be. We'll see if they can get it done in game 2 in Frisco. But if not, there'll be a game 3 back here at Lumen Field. So, looking forward to the match. It'll be a good one. Let's dive into the other playoff matches, Noah, because there was a lot of round 1 action going on in the league. So we can just give some of our takes on that in both conferences. The Philadelphia Union handled the New England Revolution pretty easily, 3-1 at Subaru Park. I watched that one. Philly pretty much just mobbed here.
Yeah.
There wasn't. I was kind of surprised by that, because I remember we were talking about it when we were previewing these games, and they had the exact same record during the regular season. But I was picking Philly, right, because the Revs have kind of been roiled in chaos, scandal, and turmoil for a lot of the season. The vibes didn't seem right, and I think that kind of got borne out in this game. Daniel Gazdag hit a PK in the 19th minute, and Mikael Orr, he got one right after that, like 6-7 minutes later, and Nathaniel Harrell had a header like 10 minutes after that. So it was just like a first half onslaught. Gustavo Bo got one for New England in the second half, but I mean, that game was all Philly, and I was doing the Philly content after that game, actually, so I was on Jim Curtin's little Zoom call, and he made a fair point, which is that, he said people probably shouldn't forget about us. We're still one of the big boys in the league. I know we had a little bit of a down year as far as like point total, but we're still the Philly Union. So message received in that game. They played really well. LAFC mobbed on the Vancouver Whitecaps 5-2. I watched that game as well, and I was standing for the Whitecaps. I was really hoping that they would do it. I think we all were. God, it would have been too much to ask for LAFC to just get eliminated by the Whitecaps in the first round. That would have been great, but it does not really look like it is. Doesn't look like it's going to happen. I will say, I made the case in the preview show for, I picked LAFC, but I was making the case for why Vancouver might have more of a chance than people think. And I do think that was borne out a little bit in this game too. The Whitecaps hung with it. They went down 1-0 and 2-1, and they equalized both times. This game was 2-2, and then the wheels kind of came off, and LAFC just started mobbing. Dennis Pawanga scored a couple goals, and it all fell apart.
My MVP.
Over? Are you saying over Lucho?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair.
Lucho's also a banger, but anyway.
I was just so deflated when because when the Whitecaps tied at 2-2, I was like, all right, like this series is on. Like LAFC is probably still gonna win, but Vancouver's gonna make it painful on them, and they're gonna have to work for it, and it's not gonna be just a massive blowout. And then that's exactly what it turned into. So,
but you know what's great about this format, Ari? That shit doesn't matter because it's 1-0.
Yeah, I mean, so that is a fair point, but I think it does matter in the sense that there's quite a gap here between these two teams that I think became quite clear as the match went on.
Yeah.
I mean, LAFC, man, like when they get rolling like that, they're pretty tough to stop. It's who Seattle would get next if they advance. And I think I like Seattle's defense to put up a much better fight than Vancouver seems to be putting up so far. But Bouanga and company, man, like when they get going, it's like a runaway freight train. Like, you can only hope to slow it down a little bit. You can't really stop it.
For the Sounders, I feel like the best option for them is to go to 3 games and they get one game rest on them.
Yeah, and LAFC, like, I'll never fully fear them again, frankly, after 2019, because there's no team that I've ever feared more than that 2019 team. To the point where I went down to LA for the
Cup final?
for the West final.
Oh yeah, West final.
And I was like on the flight down, and my whole time I was in LA, I was fully like expecting Seattle to lose. You can ask anyone actually who I might have been texting about the game beforehand. I was like, I'm just down here to watch LAFC probably mob here. I mean, it was just because they were so good that year. They had like a plus 48 card. That was peak Vela when he had 34 goals, 15 assists. When they had one of my favorite MLS players to watch, Atuesta. That team was nasty. And then watching Seattle just totally bam on them on their home field. That's still to this day the most legendary Sounders game I've ever been to. I sent some absolutely phenomenal tweets that night that will forever live in lore, in my opinion. But so now I don't want to I'm not trying to like downplay the threat that is LAFC. I'm just saying like they have shown that they love choking in the playoffs and in big games before, and specifically to Seattle. So if that is the series, then so be it. I'll be happy to play them. Happy to play them. Houston Dynamo beat Real Salt Lake 2-1. I don't really have that many takes on this game other than that I frankly would have thought Houston would have had a little bit of an easier time than that. I mean, not to take away from the fact that they got the dub. Playoff dub is a playoff dub. Hector Herrera scored a goal. The Dynamo are still they're definitely in the mix for a team in the West that could make a run to MLS Cup. But I just think this Real Salt Lake team, since Pablo Ruiz went down, they just have not. They've barely looked like a playoff team. They're formed down the stretch, which is actually unfortunate because remember I had the phase where I was kind of all in on them because I really liked the Chicho signing.
I do believe Mark clowned you on that one too on the pod.
Yeah, well, okay. The thing I'll say is that if Pablo Ruiz hadn't gotten hurt, the take could have hit because. I was actually claiming validation on the take because they were starting to play really, really well. Chicho was banging in some goals, and Diego Luna, that was the other player that I was citing as kind of like my reason for optimism around them. I wouldn't say he full on broke out, but he had a good year. He had 8 or 9 goal contributions. He looks like he's going to be a really good MLS player. He might not have been ready to carry as much of the load as he ended up needing to for them, especially as after Pablo Ruiz went down. But honestly, my whole lesson from watching Real Salt Lake this year is that apparently Pablo Ruiz is one of the best players in the league because him going down was the difference between them looking like upper tier Western Conference side and looking just not good at all, like a 1.0 points per game type of squad. They still got into the playoffs, but Houston handled them in game 1. So I think the Dynamo ultimately win that series pretty easily. FC Cincinnati destroyed the New York Red Bulls 3-0. I don't think either of us are very surprised to hear that.
Nope.
FC Cincinnati's probably the MLS Cup favorite.
Yeah.
If you grant LAFC as the favorites out of the West and FC Cincinnati the favorites out of the East, I like FC Cincinnati
easy
in that matchup. Yeah. FC Cincinnati's.
Wait, why would you give the third seed in the West the Cup favorite from the?
Well, I'm just thinking of it. I think how
are you disrespecting the number one seed in the West?
St. Louis City. I'm trying to think of it from the national pundits' perspective.
Got it. Yeah.
If you want to say that, I don't think after. I mean, we're about to talk about this game, but I don't think anyone's considering St. Louis City SC the favorite in the to come out of the West right now. And frankly, I think Seattle has a great chance to come out of the West, but I would not consider them the favorite, would you?
No, I wouldn't at all.
So that's kind of what I'm saying. I feel like from the perspective of the average pundit, which is kind of what I'm talking about, they would pick LAFC. So either way, I guess the point kind of stands. I would probably pick FC Cincinnati. I would pick FC Cincinnati over anyone in the West right now in one game. They're the favorites, so their first playoff game against the Red Bulls, who were obviously a borderline fringe playoff side, kind of confirmed that. I'm excited to talk about this last one because there's a lot of subplots that actually went along with this one.
How many people do you think listened through this entire podcast just to get to this section?
A lot of people in the city of St. Louis, I think. I don't know. We should look at the numbers of how many people listened to the last episode because I think we might have some new friends in St. Louis. St. Louis City FC have validated their status as a club on fraud watch with a 4-1 loss at home to Sporting Kansas City in their game 1 round 1 best of 3 series opener. And St. Louis City SC, they were not happy with you, Noah.
No.
They were not happy with you. They were very vocal about how they didn't appreciate being dubbed as a club on Fraud Watch on our last episode. They didn't appreciate the AI graphic of the Golden Arches. Were they on fire in the graphic?
Yeah, it was. Being burnt down by RBW.
Do you just type that into like
there's
chat?
like a Bing there's like a Bing AI chat GPT ass image creator.
Okay, gotcha.
And, it's a little fucked. Like the number on the back of the jersey isn't right, but like
I noticed that too. No, I mean it was an inflammatory image in more ways than one. And the title of the episode was St. Louis City SC on Fraud Watch, which is indeed something that we talked about on the episode. And their fans didn't appreciate that. And so I wonder if they did listen to the episode because, as kind of inflammatory as the title might have been, I think if they listened to what I was saying, they would understand that there's actual analysis behind why they're on Fraud Watch. First of all, this is the first thing I'll say though. Fraud Watch is it's Fraud Watch. Like
you're on watch.
I'm not outwardly calling you a fraud yet. Like you're on watch for it.
Yeah.
So the reasoning I gave for why St. Louis City SC was on Fraud Watch was just because their underlying numbers show it, man. They show it. They overperformed their expected goals by 20 goals this year, which is one of the biggest. I think it's the biggest number I've ever seen. And on top of that, they also underperformed like how many like the expected goals like conceded by like 7 goals. So it's literally like a spread of like 26 or 27 goals, which is staggering. And the thing is like, there is a lot of historical precedent for trends like that being evidence of fraudulence and like not carrying over year over year. Look at Austin FC. Like I've brought this up a lot of times, but they had these exact same types of splits in 2022, and everyone was talking about how they were the greatest team ever. And
they solved soccer.
Look what happened to them in the playoffs. They got exposed. They went to LAFC for the Western Conference Final, and they got rolled over. And not only...
They got rolled up and smoked.
They got smoked. And not only did they get rolled in the playoffs, but it literally transferred over to this season, and they missed the playoffs this season, and they were near the bottom of the West for most of the year, and their whole fan base wants their coach fired.
Yep.
So, like, that's kind of... all I was saying is like when I see numbers like that, my fraud alarm is going off. I'm sorry. I would say it about any team that was putting up a number like that. St. Louis was putting up numbers like that all year, and it ain't even to take away from them. Like if you're able to defy the metrics like that and get first place in the conference, that's credit to you. But all I'm saying is that come playoff time, when you're playing the elite teams in the league, that stuff gets exposed. Like we've seen it time and again. We saw it with Austin FC last year. And I just thought it was funny how like the point got fully validated immediately. Like the first game. Like I was all ready for them to probably maybe beat Sporting Kansas City in this series and then have those fans that were mad at us for the title come back and be like, oh, who are you calling a fraud now? And I still would have been like, probably you guys.
Yeah, you beat the shittiest seed in the conference.
Yeah, and it's like it's more about like the deeper you get into the playoffs, the more likelihood there is that something like that is gonna come back and even out, and it's gonna get exposed. But there is no break here. They went out on their home field in their first playoff game in club history and got smoked
by your rival?
By your rivals, the Club of Professional Wrestling Enthusiasts.
A play-in team?
Sporting Kansas City. Really, and it's a higher quality lower seed than you'll usually see because Sporting Kansas City, they dug themselves a huge hole early and then have been performing at a very good level.
The best level.
As much as I might clown on them for being professional wrestling enthusiasts, which they are, they've played good soccer for a long time now. Since May, they've been one of the better teams in the West. So it doesn't really. I mean, I don't know. We talked about it on the preview show. I was picking Sporting Kansas City like for these exact reasons. We were both saying, and they immediately beat them 4-1. So I guess the lesson here is that, like, when I say your team's on fraud watch, like, there's a reasoning behind it, and you can get mad about it if you want, but, like, these things will probably even out and you'll get exposed in all likelihood.
Mm-hmm. What people should be mad about is if Ari says that he has upside on your team. Because look what happens when he says, "Oh, we got upside on your team."
It's true. I kind of tanked Real Salt Lake with that, didn't I?
And then you've been 2 for 2 with Fraud Watch on LAFC and the post CCL final loss. And
no, I mean, kind of going through our takes. I feel like we actually hit him pretty good. Like, I had Philly over New England. Even I guess that's not like a crazy out there take, but they were even during the regular season, so that series could have gone either way. I guess none of these are that hard to pick. The only one that was hard to pick was this St. Louis Sporting KC one, and we at least nailed the first game. We'll see how the series goes.
Plays out.
Maybe St. Louis City still wins this series, and if that happens, like, feel free to come at us. But I still think you're probably going to find that at some point in the playoffs, the luck's going to run out. So anyway, I think that's about all we got for this episode.
Yeah.
Unless you had anything else you wanted to hit, Noah?
No, just I know it feels bad right now to be on Fraud Watch, but at least you have not been fraudulently claimed.
I love the city of St. Louis. I've never been there.
I don't. I'm a Kansas City guy, so
all right. Well, I got nothing against the city of St. Louis, but the squad might be fraudulent. They looked real fraudulent in game 1, so prove me wrong. Me wrong.
Well, they did prove that they can, break MLS, so maybe they can break the playoff format.
Yeah, we're going to have to find out. All right, well, we're going to call it a wrap right there for episode 17 of Lobbing Scorchers. As always, thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Go ahead and download, like, rate, subscribe, review on Apple Music, iTunes, whatever, all those platforms. We'll see you next time. Appreciate you all. Until then, we out.
Peace.